Wonderful. I will have you take, actually close your eyes and let's take a breath. And what we're going to do is we are doing sacred holy work together today. And so to honor that and to have support for that, we are going to connect to the deeper aspects of ourselves and to the great oneness, the great love that is all around us. So first what we're going to do though is go down. To go down allows us to go up in a more powerful, in a more grounded way, in a more centered way. So first we're going to feel this beautiful earth that we're on. You may even feel it. It's really amazing. If you really feel for a second, you can feel it turning and twisting through space. So it's spinning, but it's also flying through space at thousands of miles per hour. And you can actually feel this energy, this momentum. Yet this earth has created this beautiful field of energy to keep us from flying off of it, and also to keep us tethered, to keep us supported. So we want to feel that tether and honor that tether. So imagine that we both have a rich, deep cord coming out of the bottoms of our feet and the bottoms of our torso, and it's connecting to the earth, perhaps right to the center of the earth. We're seeing this beautiful red energy. We're seeing beautiful vitality, beautiful light. We allow that to come all the way up through us, and with that, we'll feel that it starts to alter and increase the vitality of this body. It also creates a more optimal field of operation for this body. And when we do that, and it creates a spaciousness within this body, when we do this, it allows the space of the heart to expand. It allows the space of the mind to relax. And then with our third eye, with this awareness, we look up into space and we see all the stars and all the planets and our sun and our moon. And we feel their love and we feel their energy. And we feel this different energy from the earth energy, but coming down to us and through us. So feel that going all the way around the outside of the body and down to the earth. Feel it coming down through the top of your head and all the way through your body. Now we've opened up the optimal flow up and down, and we're going to allow the flow of both directions to meet in our heart. So now let's put up one hand over the other in the middle of our heart, center, middle of our chest. And as we breathe in, feel the energy of the earth coming up into our heart. And as we breathe in, feel the energy of the universe coming into our heart. Let that energy blend together. And as we breathe out, we're going to breathe out through every pore of our body. We're going to honor this beautiful body and let the mixture of heaven and earth benefit this body that is earth. And next to us, we bring in the energy of heaven and earth into our hearts. We're going to breathe out through every cell of our body. The bones, the skin, the hair, the teeth, the eyes. And this has a beautiful benefit of not only getting us grounded and centered and connected, but also blessing and purifying and healing and creating the optimal state of operation for every part of our body. And finally, as we breathe in from heaven and earth, giving gratitude and thanks, we allow every atom of our body and all the atoms around us to be blessed. As we breathe out, letting that blessing, that love, that joy, that peace from all directions go in all directions. We know we are connected and we are one. And we ask to be supported and loved by the enlightened masters and by angels and by our ancestors and by Gaia and the earth. Whatever can help us in this connection we have to co-create something that has great beauty and great purpose for the benefit of all beings. We ask for the support and blessing. We are grateful for this opportunity, and we open into the spaciousness. We open into the oneness. And we will now begin our conversation by gently opening the eyes.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be with you again for the latest episode of Get on the Grid with Chessie Roberts. And as you can see, we have a bit of a new format that I'm very excited about. And my guest this time that helps me bring this new format to you is David Nelson. And he and I would like for you to join with us in aligning with the energies of co-creation so that this show gives you the best information to your highest good and best outcome. Welcome, David, and thank you for that beautiful meditation.
It's my pleasure. It's so great to reconnect with you again.
For those of you who don't know David, I'll give you a quick overview. He spent over 20 years as a professional money manager and banker before uncovering his heart and learning to listen to its unique language and wisdom. To his surprise, that wisdom brought a clear message that it was time to leave the false security of his profession and long career. Although he and others initially thought he was losing his mind to consider such a radical change, David knew that he must follow his heart and take a giant leap of faith. He later realized that he indeed had lost his mind. He'd lost the fearful, limiting, safe, connected mind, which had prevented him from exploring the more meaningful and purposeful and joyous, uncharted territories of his life. The foundation of his work is connected to self, to others and nature, and today he will be sharing the circle process that he developed and how it supports your mastery on many levels. As well as the circle process, he offers individual sessions in person or through Skype, and he has retreats around the world, including 2 retreats in Costa Rica this January and February. All of David's contact information will be listed on the show once it's published. David, I'm so tickled to be able to bring this to our listeners. I think it's something that we are more than ready for. So, what is the circle process? How does it work?
It's an interesting experience that led to the circle process being developed in the current format. I'm trained in 2 forms of Reiki at the master level, both Kundalini Reiki and then the traditional Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started doing some Reiki shares or healing circles, I found they were powerful, but they were in some ways, ironically, almost too powerful. That is, it would be perhaps overwhelming for some of the people involved and would be a little too intimate because oftentimes it would have one person be the center of attention for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought there's got to be a way that we could do this that would allow a greater level of support for the group as a whole, while also each individual receiving the benefits of community and connection and the great oneness. So I developed this process, and I'll describe it real briefly if I can. So what we do is half the people sit in a chair facing each other in a circle, and the other half of the circle stands behind the people who are seated in the chair. And what we do is, this is a guided process, and I have some music going in the background. The beauty is this can be done in a ballroom or it could be done in the woods. I've done it in both places, and it's fabulous. But the people standing behind the chair, their job is simply to stay grounded, to stay open to the universal energy, and to allow those energies to come through them for the benefit of the person who's seated. Mm-hmm. So really what they're doing in the purest sense is unconditional love, unconditional giving. One of the skills that I teach and why the circle is so important is oftentimes those people are efforting or trying. You'll know a lot of times because they'll stop and they'll be holding their breath. It's like, no, it's just letting the flow come through you, right? It should not be a draining process. So most people don't really understand proper giving. So I've broken up giving and receiving in the circle. The people who are seated, their only job, which sounds really simple, is to receive. But I find that most people have difficulty with actually just purely receiving. They think they need to be doing something. They need to be taking care of the other person. They'll feel great discomfort at this, right, in the beginning. And a lot of times women are very good at giving. Oftentimes they're not very good at receiving unless they feel it's in exchange or trade. So this is giving them the ability and the sense of knowing that there's a great power in just receiving. So why does this matter? Why would we do human sharing with human? Well, really what I've discovered and what people discover through the circle process is this is the same with heaven and earth, right? When we let the energies of the universe, when we let the energies of the earth just give to us, to support us, to let the unconditional love and light and energy flow in, then we have this abundance that not only serves us, but flows out through us to the benefit of all beings, right? So this is literally not only a model for healthy human relations, this is a model for healthy human divine relations, right? And it's practical, and we can practice it. But to continue the process, the people who are standing behind the person who is sitting, they may rest their hands on their shoulders, they may rest their hands on their head. Sometimes there's some light touch. For the most part, and some people work off the body, right? You don't even have to physically connect to the person to allow that exchange of energy.
Mm-hmm.
But after about 2 to 3 minutes, then what we do is we move everybody on the outside of the circle who's standing moves to the next person, to left or right. So eventually what happens is everybody who's standing connects with everybody who's seated. Now, one of the great beauties of this is that there's a weaving of community that occurs.
Yeah.
And this, I think we have a hunger, not only for this healthy touch and integrous intimacy, but we have this hunger for community, and literally there's a weaving of the energetic field. But it's also interesting because the person seated has their eyes closed. So they don't really know who's behind them, but what they start to understand and to get is that everybody has a unique energy they bring to the co-creative connection. So what does that mean? It means that we're all important in this greater community of life, in this human world, and in this universe is what I believe, right? We're each unique. We each have our gifts, our vibration. We have energies and light and vibration that are amplified coming through us, almost like different prisms break out different vibrations or different color streams, right? So we all have this sacredness. And the people seated learn to know that, it doesn't really matter specifically who's behind me, right? But I can open to this and receive the gifts of this that come through this moment of the circle and through this person, right? Mm-hmm. And really with their consciousness and with their intent and awareness, it amplifies the experience. But they learn not to see, oftentimes we think these intimate connections, we take them personally and get attached to them. Yeah. You're my twin flame. Oh, you're my soulmate. I can't live without you. It's right. We develop these attachments and also these aversions, right? So the attachments are, we think it's about one person or something specific, but we also have aversions, and that is like, I can't do that, and that's too scary, and that's too vulnerable, and whatever else. But when we understand that really it's a greater dance that we're doing, then it's very freeing, right? Because then we understand it's not always just about one person. So oftentimes spouses find that they are the primary givers and receivers to each other. But oftentimes now in these new form of relationships that we have, we need to have other connections. So as an example, our connection today is not one that you probably could do with your spouse, right? So to expect your spouse to provide this for you and to be able to do this with you would not only cause resentment or frustration, it just doesn't work.
Well, he and I do a lot of energy work together, but it's nothing like what you and I do, and that's good because it keeps that focus from getting too narrow.
Right, exactly. So whatever you do with him is perfect, and whatever is optimal is perfect. Right. But when you can open up to having these other spiritual partnerships, these other soulmate co-creations that occur, right, you eventually realize, we're all part of the divine. We're all part of the oneness. We each are connected in ways beyond what we understand. So the circle process, very simple as I've described it, but it allows these deeper understandings and awarenesses to occur. And so, the people seated start to go, oh, wow, when I allow somebody to give to me, I'm actually giving to them because they get blissed out. They get happy. They get to give without any fear, without any attachments, without any aversion, right? And the people seated get to work on not being caught up in who that is or what that looks like, but just relaxing and soothing. So it's such a beautiful experience.
One of the things that I have learned through processes similar to this, and the one that you and I experienced the other day when we were doing that meditation, is that a lot of time inaction can be the greatest action you can take. It's the not asking how, it's just allowing that I always teach. And it is very freeing. It's that total surrender that isn't giving up. Somebody accused me of using surrender as giving up. That isn't what it is. It's allowing the universe, the energies of the universe and co-creation to guide you in right action, in right thought, in right whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Or have I simplified it too much?
No, and you know, really, what arrogance we have that we think we need to be in control of the universe,
Yeah.
right? When we surrender, we're not giving up. We're actually, and we're not losing anything. All we're losing is our small mind, our limited mind, our egoic, right? So when we surrender into this oneness, into this, you know, safe, uh, unconditional love, it's not only. Oftentimes, I see pictures of in my mind while I'm leading the circle. I see huge oceans of just multicolored love, and we're either like whales or dolphins swimming through it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we actually become part of. We're not alone. We're not in charge of everything. We're not in such a fearful state. We have a natural understanding of trust, of faith,
If it's
and
all
that
right
is
with
all
you,
it's love.
I would like to address the term unconditional love. I had a guest on the show uh, a long while ago, and he said that no one can be unconditional in their love. I disagree with him. I didn't say so on the program because I didn't want to start an argument. But what I would like to do is address what unconditional love really is. He was saying that if someone did you harm or hurt your family, you're going to want to get back at them. You're not going to be able to love them. And I know that's false because I love my rapist in an energetic way. Um, I can send him love. I can send him peace to his highest good and best outcome, which in turn gives me the peace and the love and all of that sort of thing. So if we could kind of delve into that a little bit, I think our listeners would really like that.
Yeah, and I want to finish explaining the end of the circle, but we can do
Oh,
that at
I'm
the end of
sorry. I
it.
thought you were
No,
done. Please forgive
no.
me.
Actually, let me finish the circle process.
Mm-hmm.
So we do that, and then we'll address
Yes,
unconditional.
please.
So after everybody who stood has touched everybody who's seated, we switch places.
Mm-hmm.
And then those who were receiving get the gift of giving, and those who had been giving get the gift of receiving. And they start to understand it's just one coin. It's two faces, it's two sides, but it's one coin.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that unconditional love. That is that basic nature of the universe,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's a beautiful process. And then we continue that circle process all the way around. And at the end of it, we join hands and we create a vortex. We create a tornado in the middle of the circle. And we harvest all the good karma that we've created together, right? And we add any other intentions into that vortex. And you can maybe even see it and feel it as I'm talking about it, right? So it's this beautiful vortex. And then we let it go. I do a countdown and we let that vortex of energy and love and light go out into the universe. But we let it go through all the dimensions we don't even know about or understand. But we have the power, especially as a group, that has become that cohesive, that has become one, to send out this love and light for the benefit of all beings everywhere. And it's incredibly good karma. And a lot of people who can see and feel things will actually see like a tsunami of love and ripples and see it affecting and impacting different dimensions, different planets, and different people,
It feels
including us.
amazing too.
Yeah. And it does feel amazing. And so the key to this whole giving and receiving process is by the end of it, you're just in a euphoric state and you're not drained. If anything, some people have trouble sleeping for a while that night, which is why I teach them grounding so they can help to move that energy again. Right. But it's just creating this beautiful sense of oneness and community. So getting back to your other question, you know, my birth family was not necessarily, you know, everybody's got stuff with their birth.
Sure.
They're our greatest teachers. These are our master teachers, right? So my birth family was not necessarily a very safe, loving place. It was an exciting place. It was not very safe and loving. And my mother did what she did. She came from her own conditioning. She came from her own wounds. And most of her love was very conditional love, right? You do this for me, I'll give you this.
Right.
It wasn't until I started to do earth work, it wasn't until I started to lay on the earth that I understood what unconditional love was, because the earth loves us without condition. Right? So it matters less what we do to her. There may be a reaction. We may co-create something with her that causes the extinction of the human species, but that's not the earth punishing us or doing something to us. That is the earth just letting us co-create the experience we want to have, and then the earth will continue to do what the earth does, right? So, but on from the earth had this deep sense of female mother unconditional love. And when I really opened to this and felt into this and learned to trust this,
Mm-hmm.
right? I had to learn to open up to it. Then I had deep levels of grief and sorrow and joy and ecstasy that just rolled through me.
Mm-hmm.
That sometimes would cause half hour of laughing or crying or whatever was needed.
Yeah.
So that was really my first experience of consistent, continuous, unconditional love. And that was from Mother Earth. Now, which by the way, it's that's one of why the working with the earth is one of my foundations that I tell people is one, we've lost our foundation to the earth, but here's sort of how I think wounding serves us. So I had a wounded childhood, but what I did to survive my childhood was I'd go out on the earth every day, right? So how I stayed sane and healthy in my family was I went out and would build rafts and swim in lakes and catch crawfish and climb trees and dig holes and eat carrots out of the garden and raspberries and whatever else. Watch insects and bugs and birds and play with things and try to catch things and do other things little boys do. But nature was literally my salvation. So there's no irony at all that part of what I teach adults now is to reconnect with nature, right? So that wounding and what served me gave me great embodiment and great knowledge of the beauty and power of nature. And now I get to remind people and in some cases teach people because the newer generation, they're not connected to the earth the way
No.
you and I were, right?
No,
They
they're
don't
not.
go out barefoot on the earth and they got their phones with them or computers with them and they might even stay in the house. And so it's like reminding people when I teach people to go out and lay on the earth and connect with a tree, it always like, wow, blows their mind. It's simple. Okay. So is there unconditional love? Beyond a doubt. Are humans capable of consistent unconditional love? No, I don't think so. Enlightened masters are, right? Most of us are in some level of progress towards returning to unconditional love, which you could think of as God,
Right.
right? Returning back to the oneness. But most of us, we still have conditions in our love. We still get wounded. We still get hurt. We still get upset. We may quickly return back to something, but we're not in a state. It's pretty much only the enlightened masters if we get to the point where they're like, I'm just love. All there is love. A bee sting is love, right? The purring of the cat is love, right? But that's the opportunity for us. And part of why I love the circle is it gives that those energies come through. So the same with the universe. The sun does not have any condition on who it shines, right? So the sun is unconditionally loving, right? So yes, is there unconditional love in our world? Yes. Is it come in human form most of the time? No. does 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 that is that bad or wrong? No, it just is what it is. I'm guessing we came here for contrast. I'm
Mm-hmm.
guessing we came here to understand more deeply ourselves and each other and what the divine really is. So through whatever process helps us get there. Some it's yoga, some it's meditation, some it's energy work, some it's prayer, right? Whatever it is that gets us there, then that reminds us of what we truly are. And this is important. I think I'm so glad you asked this because most people do not feel worthy of love, I would guess.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah. So most people at their core, so a lot of times when people come to the circle first time, especially if they're coming in with some stuff,
Mm-hmm.
they end up crying, right? And this last circle I did, probably half the people cried. Probably all the people cried at some point during the circle. But sometimes they'll come in and they'll just weep because they've been hungry for this and they've been denying themselves this and they haven't asked for this. And so the key is just to open up to this. So how do we become more unconditionally loving? By let the unconditional love flow into us. And then it just naturally flows out, right? So we all need to develop our muscles around this. We need to develop our practices around this. And then we just need to allow this to occur and know it's a practice, right? Know
Oh,
that,
yeah.
you know, don't beat ourselves up when we're not that, right? But understand that we at the core, at the core, that's what we are.
I I teach my students a lot to don't ask how, just allow, to let go and let God, sort of a thing. And they look at me and say, "Well, how do you let go? How do you get to where you can let go?" And my least favorite expression is, "I'm the type of person who has to fill in the blank." And I tell them, "Well, just do this and let it go." But it is a process. Everything we do is a process, is it not? We've got to get that muscle memory, that instinctive, energetic memory, let's call it, to remember all the things that we're learning and practicing so that we can keep them active in our lives, yeah?
Yes, the conditioning we go through in our species
Mm-hmm.
is tremendous. The amount of energetic conditioning, the amount of explicit conditioning we go through, all the way from childhood on, is extreme,
Yeah.
and it's really counter to the greater truths that we know when we're in alignment with our higher self. In those spaces, we look at all those things we know that they may have some validity or truth on some level of creation, but they're not the ultimate. And the ultimate is
One
oneness.
one of the greatest lessons that I have learned as I've gone through my spiritual growth and training and growth and retraining and paradigm shifts and learning new information and figuring out how to use that in my life is the fact that I think Dr. Dyer said it very well. What's true to us in the morning is false in the evening of our lives, of our day, of our experiences. And just because it was a truth for 5 minutes when we were 10 doesn't mean it has to stay a truth when we're more awakened and more enlightened and more in the flow of things. And I think that's what trips a lot of people up. I learned this, and it came from teachers and it came from parents, and it must be true. And a lot of it isn't anymore.
Well, and a lot of that is actually subconscious too.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't even know what's driving them. If they've not done some level of work, if they don't have some level of contemplative practice, if they don't have some level of awareness, if they don't
Right.
have the observer enacted, they won't even know, and you can see with like the various debates that come up in political scenes that it's really just two egos yelling at each other. There's no level of awareness or
Right.
observer or listening or dialogue that occurs, right? So unless they've done some level of work, they're not going to even be able to understand the level of programming they've took in that isn't necessarily serving them anymore. And then back to your 10-year-old experience. I think this is the other problem is people have done things in their lives, right? They've had
Yeah.
different things happen to them and they've done different things in their lives. And they somehow think that they're still that person they were at 10,
Mm-hmm.
right? That pulled the girl's ponytail. And therefore, I'm not a good person. I tried to think of a simple example, right? And so they have trouble letting themselves grow and progress. And we also do a very good job of keeping them back there. I mean, I remember my family would anytime we got together, we always enjoyed telling old tales of that were humiliating to one person and then the other. But when you were 6, you did this, and when you were 8, you did this. And it's like finally I stopped all that nonsense and said, I'm not that person. I don't even know that person, right? That was just a step in my evolution. So those stories aren't helpful to me. I don't find those beneficial. I don't want to hear them anymore. And if you need to continue to say them, you go ahead, but I won't be here,
Yeah.
right? And so it's allowing ourselves to let go of the past in all ways, not only our conditioning, which takes some awareness, but also just to allow ourselves to return to this moment and really understand that really all there is this moment. There really is no moment other than this from a creative standpoint, from a
Right. Yeah.
awareness standpoint, right? And our most of our visions of the past have great distortions to them anyway, right? If you ask
True.
8
Yeah.
people about a situation and that happened long ago, 8 people would have very different tales. That's
Sure.
not family. So, and then of course the other thing that keeps people out of the present is most people have great fears and worries about the future, right? What about this and how about this? And this goes back to that surrender thing that you said. How
Right.
about just trusting that whatever evolves and expresses itself in the future is in your highest good, even if it's a flat tire on the highway. Right? What is this offering me from an observer standpoint, from an awareness standpoint?
That's that
And sometimes,
blessing in the lesson I talk about.
yeah, and sometimes things just are, right? So how can we be okay with the isness? So what we need some form of practice and discipline. And I also think the other reason why the circle process is so important is it touches on all the things we talked about.
Hmm.
But I also believe that we're now at the time where we're not supposed to do it all alone, right? This is not the time of the solo warrior, the shaman living off separate from the tribe. This is, I believe, is the time for us to join together to support each other, to love each other, to bring through the greater truth, to remind each other when we forget, oh, remember that this is really what you are, right? And this is what I really am. And to get those reflected and take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves in our interactions with each other. And then when we do that, it would just naturally become more loving um, and it's the support of community allows us to understand the support of the world and the support of the universe. And all of a sudden we start to care about things we didn't care about before,
And
right?
you stop caring about things that no longer serve and no longer raise you and just no longer need to be anymore.
Yeah. What color somebody is, what church they go to,
Right.
where they're from, doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
all just,
it should never have really mattered before, but now I think it's even more important to let go of stereotypes because we are not I anymore, right?
yeah. And so you walk into if you really look at this world as a Garden of Eden, right? So that was the phrase that was used in some religions.
Yeah.
You walk into a garden, you don't say, "Oh, this flower doesn't belong, and that flower is ugly," and this. You're like, "Wow, look at all the colors and all the smells, and look at how the ants are opening up the peonies, and look at how the bees are pollinating this flower. Look how the butterflies eating from this one, and the beauty of the butterfly, right? Oh, look at the snake sunning itself on the path, right? It's all the Garden of Eden. Oh, look, I can eat this. Look, I can release compost back to this, right?
Hmm.
So we see the beauty and perfection of the variety versus meeting this homogeneous genus, um,
Right.
you know, stifling sameness.
Somebody posted the perfect thing out on Facebook several months ago, and it was different species of birds all collected in a tree, and then the next picture was different species of fish all collected in one area. And it went on with several of them, and it says that humanity is the only species who doesn't embrace diversity. And I thought that's so true, and we need to start doing that because it's our diversity that makes us strong. It's our diversity that makes us um,
Interesting.
interesting. Yeah, that's a good word. I was grasping for that. So yeah, interesting. And we can learn from one another if we'll allow it.
Right. Right.
And the other thing that I think we need to do is stop looking at things as right or wrong. Just allow them to be what they are. Take on the power to rather than the power over. And I think that's what everything I've been working on in the last, I'll say, 3 weeks has brought into my laser focus is this allowing things and people to be who and what and where they are without judgment, without ridicule, without feeling like you have to get your ego in there and yell at them and say you need to do it this way because what's right for you may not be right for somebody else. It's like trying to if you tell a fish that he's stupid because he can't ride a bicycle, the poor fish will never be anything but stupid in his own mind, and that's not the way it works.
Yeah. And I think judgment, we're taught to judge by the ego, and actually it has some benefit, right?
Well,
Right. Because we learn, well, I eat this, I die,
right, yeah.
so, but really judgment at the higher sense is not a very helpful energy. Instead, what you're really talking about, even going back to the fruit analogy, is discernment,
Hmm.
right? So when we may say this person is acting this way and being this way, but instead of telling them they're wrong or making them wrong, we could say, and I choose, go back to my family analogy, I choose not to be around you while you choose to do this behavior. I
Right.
may still love you, right? And hopefully I know I love you, but I may not like you, and that's okay. And that's part of what I point out in the circle also. I said, you may not even have liked this person before the circle process, but notice how you love them now. But the love is not from making them have to look a certain way or be a certain way or give you something.
Mhm.
Instead of just love, because that's the natural, when your heart is filled and you are connected, that's the natural expression of what you are. But you may never see this person again, and it doesn't matter, right? And so they learn that their natural state is love, and then as they become less attached, so another way to look at that judgment is that's the aversions. Yeah, that's not
Right.
okay. You're different. You're ugly. You weird. You're Republican. Whatever. Those are all the aversions to something that we feel we're not.
Right.
And instead, we just own that we're all just these molecules that have come together, these atoms that are forming and vibrating at different levels of energy that create this form, and then we're some level of consciousness moving through that. And when we see that, then it's like, oh, yeah, it's all God,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And yeah, and I may not choose to interact or be part of this particular action, but that's an experience they're having, right? That is their action, right? And so we come back to what can I do? And really, the beauty is when we quit trying to control everybody else and we quit trying to control the world, there's a great level of freedom and peace that comes with that. Because what we do have control over is ourselves.
Right.
So as we open our hearts and as we ground and feel the earth and as we open to the universe and as we see the perfection of all things in that moment as it's flowing through us, right, and we feel this unconditional love, then we have a greater wisdom occur. And what we can do is we can be these glowing balls of love that move through the world. And honestly, I think that's the most powerful thing we can do, right?
I
More
agree with
powerful
you.
than signing petitions and fighting for this and doing. I think if we can just be an embodiment of the highest expressions of ourselves, then it can't help but influence everything and everybody around us. It's all connected.
Well, we have a cascade effect when we do that. It's like a waterfall into a pond, into a waterfall, into a pond. And that's what we do. Once we embrace this and we live it and we become it, it radiates out from us and we don't even have to be aware that it's happening. It radiates out from us just as strongly as, oh, have you ever run into anybody who was in a really bad mood and you knew it before you got within 20 feet of them? Well,
It's,
this is the same thing, only it's on a higher level and it creates better things, I think.
yeah, and the good news is, and I don't know if this is correct or not, but David Hawkins did a lot of work around this.
Uh-huh.
And his point is like one really happy person can this is a very primitive example, but one very happy person could offset 20 really sad people,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the vibration of love and light and joy and peace is at such a higher frequency that really if we take the responsibility for ourselves, focus on self-love and our practices and our connection and just getting ourselves into the healthiest vibration and the healthiest state possible, then the impact on the whole rest of the world is beyond our comprehension, right?
Absolutely.
So those higher vibrational energies affect proportionally much greater lower vibrational energies. You can even get the sense of. But I know there's some truth to what he says. I don't know if his mathematics is correct, but we know it's true.
Right.
And so, right. And then that changes the whole world, but it changes from inside of us.
It's like that dark and light can't exist in the same place.
Right.
Love and fear can't exist in the same place. And the higher frequencies are going to override the lower ones eventually. You may not see it right away, but it does happen. And what is the truth of this for me is a lot of my students, when they come to me, they're broken, they're sad, they're at a low point in their lives, and they've come to me because they don't know where else to go. They don't know what other questions to ask. And we work together, and little by little, they start to turn that around. And it's funny, even after they leave my sphere of influence, let's call it, sometimes they'll come back to me and say, wow, I need to tell you how much you changed my life just by smiling at me when I came to class. And that makes me feel wonderful. And then my light goes off again and spreads it some more. So,
I mean, there have been many. I've had many anecdotal stories in my own life,
I'm
But there
sure.
are, in a very simple story, we've all heard of the case where there was somebody standing on the street corner or on the bus or a cashier line, and they were really seriously contemplating killing themselves.
Mm.
And one person came and really saw them and looked them in the eyes and said, "Hi, how are you?" and made a joke. And they will note and they will say that one of the reasons I didn't kill myself is because of that person, that experience, that interaction, right? So we have no idea the impact we have on others. I mean, it's way beyond what we can even, energetically, I get it sometimes. The circle's a great laboratory for this.
Yeah.
Everybody who comes to the circle then takes all that vibration, all that love, all that energy, all that awareness, and they go bring it into their homes. They bring it into their workplace. They bring it into the supermarket, right? So it's like we're spreading these seeds of love that will grow when watered and nurtured and supported when light shines on them. But our job is not to worry about when the seeds grow. It is to be, the tree of life, and let our fruit of our actions spill onto the earth, and they will grow when they grow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very empowering and very beautiful. We don't have to fix anything. We don't have to save anybody, right? All we have to do is be us,
Yeah.
right? And we can allow ourselves to know that we're dark sometimes, and we're mean sometimes, and we're selfish sometimes, and we're incredibly generous sometimes, and we're incredibly loving sometimes, and we're incredibly wise sometimes, right? And so then we don't have to be consistent within ourselves either, or perfect within ourselves. Understanding we are perfect and everything else is perfect, just as it is. And then as we decide to co-create something that is a higher expression of what we want to experience, then it evolves, right? And that's perfect too,
Yeah.
you know? So when we get to then it just becomes sort of easy. Then it's just flow. And when we get into this state, then we're supported by forces that we have no comprehension of.
Another thing I'd like to add to that is it's okay to have a case of the blue meanies sometimes. It's okay to be a little depressed sometimes. It's okay to say something naughty when you stub your toe. It's the awareness with which these things occur that changes within our biology, within our spirit spectrum, within our energetic spectrum, because what happens in my experience is that the more I work on raising these things and connecting with these things and being what we've been talking about, is I recognize the downslope quicker. Before, I'd be angry or upset for 2 or 3 days and then realize, oh, this doesn't feel good. Why am I doing this? And let go of that. But now it happens within the space of minutes most of the time. And then I can forgive myself. I can forgive the situation, go back to the love light, if you want to call it that. And
Well, and, and,
that
and
fixes me, and in turn, that fixes everything else.
well, and if indeed, and I know this could be challenged by a lot of people, understandably, but if indeed everything's perfect on some level, right?
Hmm.
Then when a situation occurs that brings up a strong feeling in us, so what I do is I use those. I
Oh,
not
yeah.
only go, "Oh man, I'm mad. I don't want to be mad. I'm gonna choose to be happy." And you can do that, which is good.
Sure.
But I'll look at, why am I mad? And
Yeah.
what's underneath this
Good
mad?
question.
There's some feeling of insecurity. There's some feeling of hurt. Or maybe I'm just really tired and it was just
Hmm.
something that I found irritating. Whatever. I look at that and I don't resist that. I think a lot of people with the uncomfortable feelings, they resist it.
Yeah.
And the irony is it actually creates more of it, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like trying to hold the beach ball under the water. Because it's very tiring to do that. So instead, when I have those strong emotions, I go into them and I go through them, but I don't create stories around them, right? I don't amplify them. I don't add them. I may have a story that comes up and I watch that and I look at that and I hear that, but I don't then, oh yes, my mother was horrible and she couldn't love me like mother. I don't do that. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, this is me feeling like I would have liked more love, and that's okay.
Hmm.
And then I feel that, and I'm like, okay, well then where can I get more love? I can get more love to myself. I can go lay on the earth and receive the love of mother. I can go lay on the earth and feel the love of father, son, right? I can
Yeah.
call a friend and we can play together and do something, right? And so it's finding, by going through that, then oftentimes there's gifts and wisdom in there. But here's the other thing that's crucial.
Hmm.
Why do we have to go through those challenging situations, man. They develop compassion.
Yeah.
When we go through and we've been knocked down to our knees, and when we've been really angry that we wanted to strangle somebody, but we can understand when others have those feelings also, and we can have compassion for ourselves, and then eventually compassion for others. And then a genuine humbleness comes. There's a lot of false humility out there, sometimes in the spiritual world. And we see it with a lot of the ministers and those things in the world. I'm just a servant of God, and then they go back to their $1 million mansion and watch their porn or whatever they do. You know what I mean? It's just like it's incongruous with what they're saying. But there's a real humbleness that comes from living life and being vulnerable and being open and really loving somebody and not being loved by somebody back. You know, right? There's
And
this,
that's okay too.
and it's perfect because it all strengthens us and allows us to know, I can keep my heart open no matter what. And so there's this authentic humbleness which starts to move through it as life weathers us down and polishes the stone, that we are. So we just become this diamond that reflects the light. Right? It takes off all the dust and the dirt and maybe the crap from childhood. So it's like everything's an opportunity for awakening. Everything's an opportunity for healing. Everything's an opportunity for transcendence. When we look at that, then it's like, well, what's not okay in my life then? Right? I may want to move through this. I may want to choose something different in the future, but it's all serving me to become a greater expression of me in this world.
And one thing I like about that is and you've used this word many, many times through the show today, is choose and choice. We can choose to change our mind. We can choose to make a different choice. We can co-create with our higher selves to make better choices. It's all in what we decide we want to accomplish within ourselves. And it doesn't have anything to do with what's going on outside of us, yeah?
Yeah, and I'll do a little discernment here that I think is important.
Okay.
What we choose from our head, we're going to probably ultimately find less rewarding than what we choose from our head.
Absolutely,
So
yes.
why we need to do our work and why we need to do our healing and why we need to do our self-awareness and why we need to find ways to fill our hearts and why I teach grounding and centering
Yeah.
and heart-loving activities. Like the circle really is a loving oneness circle, really is
Right.
what it is. Call it empowerment because I'm empowering each person to step into their own power, their own light, their own awareness of it. But it's from when we get this heart open and cleaned out and see how spacious and huge it is, limitless.
Yeah.
And from there, there's a wisdom, and from there, there's a voice, like you said in the intro, it was the voice of my heart that
Hmm.
said it was time to leave banking. When my head said, "You're crazy. You're going to be a millionaire. Why would you do this? You're safe. You've got it made, right?" But my heart and my soul needed some other experiences that were perfect for me, that were right for me. So as we choose from the heart, then the potential for it to be in our highest good is increased dramatically
Hmm.
versus when we choose from our head, which, and it's not like the head's bad. My head's still there. It's just my head now works for my heart versus before my heart was in slavery to my head, right?
Big difference.
Big, huge difference. And so then as we choose from our heart, it's a very empowering thing and has much quicker responses
Hmm.
and is responded to by other people in a much more supportive way.
This is true. The first time that happened to me, I was so surprised. I didn't see it coming. I I did what I tell my students not to do. I was looking for the package to come wrapped a certain way.
Right.
But I was aware enough to realize that I was looking in the wrong direction, and when I did change that focus and recognized it for what it was just overwhelmingly wonderful. And I've never looked back. I won't say I've never gone back, but what I have found in that little exercise in futility is that it's very uncomfortable to go back. Once you attain this openness that we've been talking about, trying to go back to the way it used to be, it's like trying to put on your baby shoes again. They just don't fit. And it's tantamount to being painful. And you say, well, why am I doing this? Stop that. And you do, and you move forward. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I have ever embraced. And I wouldn't give something pretty to have had it.
The analogy so I mentor a lot of people and I work with a lot of people and
Mm-hmm.
I love doing that. And a lot of times we'll get to the point where I know we're at this point. And I said, okay, we're now at this point where you need to choose.
Mm-hmm.
You need to choose whether to go forward or not. And this is free will and I'll love you either way. I'm not attached to you doing either way. Whatever you do, I'm here to support you. Right.
Right.
I said, think of the parking lot. You drive into these paid parking lots or especially like at the airport and things. And they have them less now, but they used to have them all the time. I don't know if you remember this, because it's quite primitive. But you drive over these spikes, and they pull down when you drove over them one
Right.
way.
Mm-hmm.
But if you tried to back over them or tried to go out the exit or the entrance as an exit, they'd pop all your tires.
Right.
And I said, you're at this point. I said, if you continue to go forward, you will find it very, very, very painful to try to back up. And of course the Matrix movie did a great job with that. It's like you take the blue pill, you ain't gonna be able to go back into the illusion of your life that you had,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's absolutely true. So I always warn people at that point because there is, being one of the sheep of the herd does have some benefit. I mean, and I don't mind, and I don't judge people who choose to stay sheep and just
Mm-hmm.
move with the flock, right? Because
Right.
there's a safety to that and a comfort to that. And there's even a part of our humanness, right? The human part of us, not the soul part of us, that even wants that, right? Just stay part of the herd, stay part of our energetic conditioning. It's fine, it's okay, right? But those of us who choose to drive over those spikes, to go back is almost impossible, and to do it is just very, very painful. And so, yeah, when you go forward, and then the irony is that it actually, once you're into that, you would not trade it for anything,
Uh-uh.
right? But it doesn't mean the work's not done.
Oh, no.
It's just then you discover new levels of. So as a good example, something that's been coming up for me the last couple of years is karma. So it's been my personal karma I've created in this lifetime, karmas I've created in other lifetimes. I'm starting to feel and work with the global karmas that happened in the last circle I did. That we
Mm-hmm.
dealt with some of the masculine, feminine issues that have been going on for centuries, and some of
Right.
them around that. And we resolved some of that through the circle process. So there's this great vehicle for this greater liberation of our hearts and minds in this moment. So as you cross over that, then you start to look at, what have my actions done and what have I done? And then, going back to the extreme example that you used in the beginning, in fact, I'll just use my own.
Okay.
So, I had things done to me as a child that I would have preferred not be done, right? But as I did when I drove over those spikes, what I realized is in other lifetimes, guess what? I've done that to other people too, right? We've all been everything,
Yeah.
right? We've all been the murderer and we've all been the murderer. We've all been the saint. We've all been the sinner, right? So when we start to understand that we are this collective wisdom with collective energies, and what happens over in Syria is just as important as what happens in my backyard. But what
Mm-hmm.
do I have control over? What happens in my backyard? But we start to understand that there's all this great expression of creation, and that there's karma is not to punish us, right? Karma is to enlighten us, right? Karma is to know, I can choose differently, or when I do this, this is how it impacts me or impacts the world or impacts others. That's the beauty of karma. Karma is not, hell or somebody up there judging us. Karma is really just a feedback system to say, there's a more enlightened way and there's a better way. And
Sort of
as
a
we get,
checks and balances thing, huh?
yeah, and as we get into that, then we just naturally flow to things that create better and better karma for us.
Mm-hmm.
We avoid the things with the negative karma, and we tend to attract them less, by the way, too, which is
Yeah.
interesting. But I really believe a lot of the experiences we have is this dance, soul agreement, and dances we've done, and past karma coming to fruition. And so as we start to think about what seeds do we want to plant for our future and for the future of all beings, then it becomes quite easy to go, I want more love and more joy and more peace and more harmony. And I want to play with more people like this, like you and I are doing in this conversation.
Yeah.
And yeah, then this is all, there's a peaceful joy that occurs. We don't have a word for it,
Yeah.
but I can feel it right now with us,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if you can feel that
Oh,
vibration. It's a
absolutely.
peaceful joy where you know everything's in alignment and all you have to do is just relax and have fun and be and
Just be.
let spirit come through you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
My guidance peeps, as they call themselves, push this agenda a lot. Say, okay, you're rowing your boat the wrong way. Turn around and go with the flow, woman. Stop trying to judge. Stop trying to fix it. Stop trying to control it. Just let it happen. And in that human foible thing that we've discussed, we do that. With, oh, I don't think I like this. I want to fix it. Don't worry about fixing it. There's nothing to fix because it is what it is. And when you can trust that, and when you can allow that, and when you can go with that, you'll find just exactly what you said, that open, wonderful connection that is just beyond description.
Well, and I want to amplify something you've said and that came up from that question earlier, where people think surrender is giving up.
All right.
Surrender is not. Surrender is saying, I allow myself to be supported and I
Mm-hmm.
allow myself to take right action and I allow myself to be inspired. So it's when we take action, but it comes from this place that it's very powerful. And we may do something, and I would also call it divine timing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you and I decided to do the video shows together now. And so
Right.
it's divine timing. If we tried to do this a year ago, we might have been pushing on the string, it
Yeah.
wasn't in the right time. But you were ready for this, I'm ready for this. And so we co-created this in this moment. This is the divine timing. So it's not like we surrender, we don't do anything, we just, you know, sit in our chair and wait for something to happen. It's that we are paying attention to when that voice speaks to us, when the inspirations come to us, when we feel the timing is right, and then we take action. It is so much more powerful. And guess what? That takes all the pressure off,
Oh, it
right?
really
Because
does.
and then like, oh, I don't know, this isn't this, and I got to do this. And how many people have those to-do lists? And I have a lot of people not show up. People come to my events, and this is my frustration. People come to my events and go, "Oh my God, this is the most powerful thing I've ever experienced in my life." They will literally say things, "This has
Yeah.
changed my life." Whatever else. And then I'll see them again later, and it's like, "Hey, how come you haven't been coming to the circle?" "Oh, I've just had too much to do, and I've been too
Yeah.
tired." And I've been like, you know, you're missing the point. That's when you need to come
Right.
get refreshed and replenished and
Right.
take an hour or two and do this. So they feel the weight. They carry all this weight of the world and all the weight of these things that they have to do, and it just crushes them. And so they're like Sisyphus pushing that
Pushing that
rock up
rock.
the,
Yeah.
yeah. And guess what? They get to the top, and then there's another rock that comes flying down at them, right?
Yeah.
And they got to push another, right? Versus if they just let go of all that and
Right.
allow themselves to be supported and loved and self care. I have to keep continually work with people about self care. I got to take care of this and do this. Who do you got to take care of first? Oh, I got to take care of this and go take care of my mom. No, who do you have to take care of first? Oh, me. I got to do self care first. Why? Because I'm more effective and I'm more powerful and I don't get drained and I take more inspired. Yeah, self care first.
And it's not selfish.
It's
I
self
get a lot
love.
of people say, oh, that sounds so selfish, but that's not it at all. You cannot help someone else if you yourself are weak because you're not fed either spiritually or physically. You
Right.
can't help someone else if you are down in the dumps with them. You have to take care of your own personal stuff. That's my scientific term for it, David, and just in case you didn't
Yep.
know. You don't take care of your stuff, you can't help somebody else with theirs.
Right. And not only take care of yourself, but replenish yourself.
Absolutely.
Right. So not only
Absolutely.
clear out, take care of what you need to do first, but really fill yourself again and again and
Right.
again.
And
And
you
then
know when you're depleted.
you bet. And
Hey,
once you're at that vibration at that level, you're of no service to you or anybody else.
true.
Right. So yeah, so people feel this way. They got to just set it down. And I'll tell people that when I work with them. You know what? Set it all by the door before you walk in. And if you need
Absolutely.
to, it will still be there when you walk out. You can pick it out. But for the next 2 hours, you're going to just nurture yourself and love yourself and support yourself. And
The Native Americans call that the burden basket. They have a basket outside their home, and you put your burdens in the basket and come in the house relieved of those burdens. And if you choose to pick them up on your way out, then fine. If not, they'll just go away on their own. And I've always thought that was just a wonderful concept.
I have never ever heard that before. I love that story. That's great.
I'm,
Yeah,
it's one of my favorites.
yeah.
David, this hour has just absolutely flown by. I can't believe it's up already. This has been wonderful. Please don't hang up. I'm going to do a little bit of shameless self-promotion here, and I'll talk to you on the backside of the show, okay?
Sounds great.
All
Thank you.
right. I want to thank all of our listeners for joining us today for the show. If you'd like to send in a question or a suggestion for a topic that you'd like us to cover on future shows, please send your question, your suggestion, or request to me at Chessie at ChessieRoberts.com. You can find all of my information at ChessieRoberts.com, all of my programs and everything. My music is at ArchersMeadow.com, and you'll hear that at the intro and the outro of the show. And my book, Evolving into Self, From the Puppet to the Master, My Evolution from the Cradle to the Grid, is on Amazon.com. Again, I will have all of David's contact information for you when I publish the show out on YouTube, and you can find him there and connect with him there. Again, thank you for listening. Come back anytime to hear Get on the Grid with Chessie Roberts. Have a great time till I see you again. Bright blessings. Bye-bye.